Hello and welcome to how to do a no buy or low buy year. So this is kind of the step-by-step chronological process that I go through each time I'm getting myself set up for a coming no buy or low buy challenge. So I will actually leave in the description box like all the headings I'm going to talk to, or I guess the steps that one could take in case you just kind of want to not worry about what I have to say, and I totally respect that, and just get straight to the main points and unpack and think about that for yourself. So you can check that out. And yeah, if you're interested in hearing kind of my rambles and thoughts and ideas around how to unpack this, then keep watching. So the first area that you need to kind of address is to make the decision. You know, if you've clicked on this video, you are either in the process of deciding whether or not to do a no buy or low buy, or you have already made that choice. And basically you want to make that choice, and you also really want to back yourself and commit to it, because everyone, I think, in this world has those little voices in the back of our head, and sometimes they're like right here just telling us like, well, there's no way you could do that, or yeah, you'll do a no buy, but you know, probably by January, end of January, February, you've already like bought some things and like messed it up anyway. But yeah, just try, because you know, you might as well, but like honestly, we know you're not really going to be successful in it. But actually, like, block those voices out and just be like, no, this is my year. I have made the choice that I'm going to commit to this challenge regardless of how hard it gets and what different circumstances come up in the year. I will always, to the best of my ability, try to execute and follow the rules that I've set in place. And it's not a question, you know, like things will happen, life will change. I think the last few years has definitely showed us that you can't predict what a year will look like, but regardless of what's to happen, you're still going to consider this your no buy or low buy and do your absolute best to follow the rules that you set yourself, and to really, yeah, like believe in yourself, like know that you can do it. It's not impossible. I know it feels like it is, but it's really actually achievable. And it doesn't mean that you're going to perfectly follow everything to the T exactly how you think you are now, and then at the end of the year you'll realize it's differently. But still, just being in the process of on a no buy or low buy, and every single time addressing yourself, trying to get back on track and sticking to those rules no matter what, really holding that awareness is what's going to be profitable and really give you the benefits and the growth that you might be searching for in doing a challenge of this kind. So that is the first part. Stick it out, make a commitment, make a decision. You're doing this. That's what you've decided. Now we're just going to go about the logistics of setting it all up, because you've made the choice that you want to do this challenge. So the next area is to look at your why, which I guess is kind of connected. You could think about whys in relationship to making the decision, but once you've really said yes, now it's really time to unpack your why to as far as you possibly can. So, you know, there's lots of different overarching, I guess, sort of surface level reasons one might want to do a no buy or low buy, and maybe that's, I want to save money, or I want to have a more minimal space and not buy lots of things. And those are good reasons, of course, but honestly, to really make it valuable and really make it a motivator for yourself, you need to unpack it further than that. So for me, I've kind of got a sort of general motivation of wanting to keep my space clean and tidy and more minimal and stick to that lifestyle. Well, why do I want my space to stay like that? Like, what's the benefit of that? Well, I feel like I know for a fact I suck at concentrating when my space is all unorganized and like disruptive and things are in the wrong place. Like, I can't hone in on my schoolwork. I just always get distracted by trying to clean up. I can't focus on anything else. So that's why I want my space tidy. Well then, like, why do you want to focus on your schoolwork? What happens when your space is tidy? Well, I can really like hone in on the studies I'm doing. I think they're very valuable. I get a lot out of them. I become very self-reflective when I'm doing my studies, because they really push me to think. I also feel like in that time, yeah, I start to learn more about myself. Well, like, why do you want to learn more about myself? Well, I think it's really important to like be in this world to learn more and get to know yourself as best as possible, and to start working on yourself in the areas where you feel like you're not really living up to your own expectations. Well, why do you want to do that? Well, because when I interact with people in my day-to-day life, I feel like if I'm not upholding myself and being the best person I can, I'm actually walking around and doing harm to other people by putting my stuff on other people, by not taking responsibility, by not really like owning who I am and recognizing my behavior. How often do I go through life and I just don't pay attention to, you know, offhanded comments I might make to someone, or like things that maybe you don't even mean to be nasty or horrible, but because you're not being really conscious of yourself, or I'm not being conscious of myself, it has a detrimental effect to others. Well, why don't you want to have that sort of detrimental effect to others? Well, because my goal in life is to be here to be as helpful and supportive, as encouraging as I can to other people, and I would just hate for my existence to cause more harm to other people when I could do something about it. I think ultimately every person is going to trigger other people no matter what in life, but if you can do the best you can to minimize that, that's like an awesome thing. Like that is like my thought process, right? So that was very long and long-winded. It's the same with money, you know, like you want to have, okay, I want to save money. Why do you want to save money? Well, I want financial freedom. Why do you want financial freedom? Well, because I have a family and, you know, I'm always worried that I'll lose my job or something happen and then I can't provide for them. Well, why is that so important that you really need to provide for your family? It's like, well, for me, that is the people I love the most, I care about the most. I feel like my life isn't got value unless I can support and really look after the people that I care about, that I can do whatever I need to do when that time happens. And you know, for me, having that money in the bank knows that I can always secure my family's safety and security in some way, shape or form. And that to me is like what will make me rest better when I go to sleep at night, or whatever it is, you know, to take it down to those depths and not just sit up in the surface of like, oh, well, it's, you know, it'd be nice to have some savings. Like, yeah, of course it would be, but like, why? Like, why? I just keep going. And so that's for me one of the most important things. And to go with your why is also something you want to look at as maybe a vision for the end of your no-buy year. So if you do a challenge like this, what will it look like at the end of the year? How will you feel? Where will you be at in yourself? And I think this is really important because your why is like the motivation to start doing the challenge, but your vision is the reason to keep, like, also just keep going. Like, they both support each other, but I think one kind of is the beginning and the other part is like what you're sort of working towards in the end. So for me, a vision is kind of like something that I look at on multiple levels of like where I might be at in life. So there's like my physical reality, then there's maybe my emotional reality, or like where I'm at in myself, and then there's more of like a spiritual or higher value reality that one could look at. So for me, with my particular goal, my physical environment, I want it to be clean and all that kind of stuff and nice and organized. I want it to be really easy to get my space back in order. It doesn't take me much time, and I love that there's space between the things that I have. I feel like my possessions can breathe and really feel like at home, and they can relax in my space and things like that. And that's the physical, right? On an emotional level, or like a bit more of a personal level, is one of the things I really struggle with is confidence. And it's quite detrimental. Like, it can be a big problem in my life. I think a lot of people struggle with confidence, but one of the main ways that it affects me is that I spend a lot of my time looking for like confirmation from others that I am doing a good job, that I am doing what is expected of me, that I am, you know, executing things properly, and that people are happy with my work, and you know, they also think, yeah, I'm doing good, I'm a good person, and you know, they also like me as a person. And you know, I look at for that in like the authorities in my life, but also from my peers, and it becomes a problem because when I don't get a positive affirmation or like a confirmation back saying, yeah, you're doing really good, it becomes a very dodgy cycle whereby I go like, oh no, like I'm doing a terrible job, like, you know, I'm just not living up to their expectations, they must be so disappointed in me, maybe I'm just causing more problems than I'm worth, and I'm actually just more destructive and detrimental to people, I'm not actually helpful in this situation, this is really bad, like, you know, I should feel ashamed of myself. And then like that's the cycle that starts, right? Because I'm constantly looking for that from other people. But really where I want to get to in myself at the end of doing a challenge of this nature is that I can do that for me and I don't have to look to others to do that, if that makes sense. That I can know that regardless of what other people think, like I know that I'm doing a good job and I'm living up to not other people's expectations but my own expectations that I have set for myself based off the environment I'm in. And sure, what other people expect of me, especially like bosses when it comes to work and things like that, but ultimately deciding if those expectations are something I want to participate in and how am I going to hold them in myself in general, regardless of what those authority figures might think, and that I am good enough and that I don't need other people to tell me that. I think as a young child, I grew up with the authority figures or adults in my life always giving me a lot of positive feedback, which is incredible. I'm so fortunate to grow up in an environment like that. But then as I've matured and gone out into the world, a lot of people don't do that. Like a lot of people are very or not very forthcoming in positive affirmation and confirmation of people. They just kind of live their lives and are wrapped up in their own worlds and just kind of like you're there doing what you need to do, and they don't think about you as much as you think they think about you. So that for me is a goal. And so like I want to have a clean space that I can have time to focus on and work on that issue for myself and build up my own confidence in that process. And then on a spiritual level, it's also so that I can make time and conscious space to do that work. It's, you know, for me, spirituality, like I definitely connect to that. I have like a spiritual path or something that I am engaged with, but in terms of if you want to talk about it not in those terms, I would say look at it from more of a point of like values, like what are your values in life? So like honesty is something you value, or like communication, or like trust, or whatever those things are. Like what are those like higher defining principles in your life that are like a golden thread that weave through your existence and why you do and carry yourself the way you do, sort of thing. So that's kind of what I mean when it comes to like that spiritual element, to make time to sit down and consider those values and journal about it and do work on it and see my therapist and talk to her about it and really try and do that work. So for me, taking that distraction of shopping and consumerism away allows for more space for me to do the work that I consider to be most important and to line up to my values. So that's kind of my vision, if that makes sense. That was a little bit messy. I hope you were able to follow, but that is kind of the idea. You want your why, you want a nice, not necessarily nice, but a vision to go along with it, and you want to try and clarify those things as much as possible. And it doesn't mean that at the end of your no-buy year you're going to be exactly where the vision is that you've created for yourself, but it's more that you've put an intention in place that you want to work towards, if that makes sense. So the next area to look at is, once you've got those two things done and you've made the choice to do this challenge, is to come up with some rules. How are you going to structure this? How are you going to make it work for you? So I have a whole video where I share my personal rules. I will quickly try and give you a bit of a rundown now. But if you're doing a no buy or low buy, if you are doing a no buy on mostly everything, or you're just doing it on a few specific categories, or if you're saying, well, I'm doing a no buy but I'm going to buy the essentials, those are all great places to start, but you need to unpack it further. Like, what is essential for you? Define your essentials, because you don't want to end up in the shop in a few weeks time and go like, oh, should I buy this? Like, is that essential for me? Can I justify that as essential, or is that meant to be on the no buy? Like, you need to get really, really clear on what those things are. So I define everything on my list, on my no buy list. I then even unpack a couple of the different categories that are triggering for me. So when it comes to clothing, I unpack that to specific clothing items that I always have the tendency to buy, like cardigans. If you're into makeup, same thing, unpack like, okay, eyeshadow palettes is like the place where you always seem to buy way too many, or lipstick, or whatever it is, and really unpack that. And same with then, what are your low buys? Like, for me, I have a no buy list, I have a low buy list, and I have a will buy list. And my low buy list is things that I'll still purchase, but I want to in moderation. And then kind of like define that, well, what does moderation look like to you? Is it eating out 3 times a week, or is it eating out 1 time a week? Like, you have to really spend time really defining and unpacking everything for you in your personal context, with an alignment to your goals and your values and your why for doing a challenge like this. And then the next area is like the things you will buy. What are your essentials? Like, you know, toothpaste, toothbrush, soap, maybe a cleanser, but the cleanser and the soap could be the same thing. Like, do you need face moisturizer? Like, what are the things that you feel like it wouldn't really bring value into your life to restrict those things from your normal shopping behavior? And then the next thing is to really look at some exceptions, areas where you will just allow yourself to get something if you need to. It's like something really is a true need, you will allow it. And you know, with the exceptions, I feel like you can make them a bit general because you've unpacked everything else so clearly that you know exactly when something's a true need, what that actually means to you. So having that exceptions there I think is important as well, because the reality is things unfold, life changes, you never know where you're going to be in 6 months time, and it's okay that there is a certain level of movability or flexibility in the sense where you're still holding tight to your rules, but there is, if it is really a true need, if it's actually causing you way more trouble than it's worth to not buy that thing, then buy it. But if you think it's just more like an emotional response, then maybe that's another thing that you can unpack, and we'll talk about having that sort of emotional relationship to purchasing and things like that a little bit further down the list of things. So the next area is do not panic buy or like stock up or stockpile or any of that stuff before your no buy. It's completely unnecessary. Your rules should be so clear and so structured that anything you truly need you can get. Like if it really is needing to be purchased in the year, it's fine, like you'll live, just get the thing you need. So don't go out and like buy all the shampoo you need and all the conditioner and all the essentials you need, because ultimately the essentials should be allowed to be purchased in some way, shape or form throughout your year. So I feel like there shouldn't really be any need to do any form of stockpiling, and definitely try not to panic buy. I know it's really hard. Sometimes when you're going to go on a diet, you just start eating as much stuff as you can so that you can, you know, you're like, quick, I'm going to do it now because then in next week I'm not going to buy anything anymore. But like really try not to do that. Like it's such a temptation, and it's just such basic normal human behavior, but really try and avoid that as much as possible, because when you do your no buy or low buy, you have the opportunity to really get usage and value out of all the stuff you already have. And if you suddenly go and buy a bunch of stuff before the no buy, you're not giving yourself that chance to use all the other things that is already in your collection or in your possession in some way. The next area is all about tracking, and tracking your no buy and low buy and all the different elements you might want to track throughout this challenge. And I think tracking is such an important part of doing a challenge of this kind, because it is so motivating. It also keeps you exceptionally accountable, and you do need something that says like, oh yeah, I've got to like write this down if I make a mistake or if something happens. Like you want to have that accountability, and that really comes through tracking. It also shows you, like I said, your progress, and it's also such an awesome thing to look back once you've done the whole year, like, wow, these are my numbers, this is the actual hard result. I think it's hard to know how well you're doing until you look back on things. Like I especially know that for project panning, I'm always like, oh, I haven't made much progress on this pan, and then every time I look back at my old photos for the month when I'm editing my updates, I'm like, oh wow, like I actually made quite good progress. And you need that tracking to be able to show that reality to you and like have numbers or have photos. So writing things down, taking pictures, filming, whatever it is that you want to do to track and have some form of accountability. So what are the things you can track? You can track obviously all the purchases you make. I track everything, so not just physical items that I purchase, but also like anything that I spend money on, and then I color coordinate it based off like if it's an item, if it's eating out with friends, all that kind of stuff. I also track the amount of products I used up, so all the products I use up in general, as well as products I use up through doing a project pan challenge. I track how many gifts I was given through the year, how many hand-me-downs I received. I track whether I've purchased toiletries items or like purchased like normal just items. Like I track everything so that when I get to the end of the year, I can go, wow, like look at how much I was able to save, look at how many things I worked my way through, just look at the results. And I can link for you my results video from my first no buy low buy year, and then I'm going to be filming one soon for the wrap up for 2021 as well. And it's just such a big motivation to track things. I also think like you can track all the different things that you attempted to purchase but didn't purchase. Like think about it for a bit. Like I know the things that I enjoy tracking, but I'm sure there's lots of different things, and depending on who you are and your different hobbies or the different areas where you've purchased a lot of things, there is different ways to track different items. Now, another element that's fun to add in with a no buy low buy is some other kind of challenge or little project to accompany it to really bring your focus to what you already have instead of all the things you want to buy. So an amazing challenge for that is a project pan of some kind, whether you're doing it with makeup or beauty products or toilet projects or anything of that nature, anything that's consumable basically. You can do project panning with like art supplies or like anything that you can use up in some way. I think that's an awesome challenge. Another great thing is people often do like capsule wardrobes, which I think a capsule wardrobe in some way is just the clothing version of a project pan. Like finding a way to get creativity and usage out of what you already have, mixing things up, doing different outfits and learning to appreciate what you already have is incredible, and getting good use and value out of all the things you've already spent your hard-earned money on. Another element is you could go about simplifying your life throughout the year. You know, if you want to declutter, minimize things down, follow a bit more of a KonMari or minimalism track as well. I think that's a great pair as well with a no buy or low buy. Maybe you want to do some form of budgeting if the finance element is a big part of your motivation for doing this challenge. And there's so many different ways you can track and budget and do little challenges. It doesn't mean you have to do it every single month for the whole year, but maybe, you know, 3 months out of the year you want to do this budgeting method, and maybe for, you know, 3 months you want to try a capsule wardrobe. This is really your chance to like do all these things, test it out and see what really works for you and what, yeah, gets you excited about doing a challenge. All those things are very valuable and very useful ways to set yourself up. But now you've set yourself up, what happens? Like, what happens now you're on your no buy or low buy? And I think something that is really important is to recognize that you're taking away a distraction of some kind. You're taking away a distraction, but you're also taking away something that really stimulates you and takes up a lot of your time and energy. So what are you going to do with that space, with that kind of hole that you've created? How are you going to fill that? I think that's something really important to start considering in the early days or the beginning of your no buy, because you're gonna be tempted to shop. So what are you gonna do in those times where you're kind of just like, well, I'm really bored, like what should I do? Oh, usually I'd go to the shop. So think about those hobbies or things you've always wanted to try, whether you want to walk more, you want to do more drawing or painting, if you want to get into photography, if you have some really good books that you've always wanted to read but you've never gotten around to it. If there's people in your life that you want to spend more quality time with and you haven't because of whatever reason, this is the moment. This is the chance to create a list of all those things, and like with everything I've said in this video, unpack it further. So don't just say like, oh, I want to walk more. Okay, what does that actually look like? So, oh, I want to go on at least one great hike a week. Okay, that's awesome. Like that's a goal. Or like 2 hikes a month or whatever it is your goal is. And then go, all right, well now I need to look up like places where I can go hiking around my area. So you look up those places so you know exactly where those trails are or places where you could go walking. And then you could think about, okay, who do I want to come with me? Think about a list of people who you know like hiking or who might be interested. So then when your day off from work comes and you're sitting there and you're going, oh, what should I do today? I don't really know. Maybe I'll just go to the shops, get some groceries, and then, oh, there's Target. I'm gonna walk into Target. Now I'm tempted to buy all these things. Like, what you want to do is have like a clear plan. Like, it's my day off. Awesome, like there's that hike that I could go through, and I know my friend over here has got their day off. Let's go to that hike, and then I'll grab some groceries on the way home. And it just shifts your whole mindset when you create a list and actionable things you can do. When that time comes of boredom and just like, how do I keep myself full? You've got the list. You've already got all the things that you can do. You've got a list of 10 books you want to read. You have, if you want to get more into drawing, you want to create one art piece each week, one drawing, whether it's perfect or it's a total mess, whatever, you're going to create one drawing each week. So every time you have 30 minutes, you sit there and you do a bit of drawing, and maybe you stick a TV show in the background instead of like scrolling through and trying to look for things to buy online. So find all those things that you can fill that space with. But at the same time, the whole point of a challenge of this nature, the whole point of, I guess, putting yourself consciously into a harder situation is to grow and to learn. And so what's going to happen when you take away the distractions, you take away the sort of material things, and you start to unpack things, you will start to go deeper and learn more about yourself. And also stuff is going to come up. Like, most people shop because of certain senses of inadequacy or insecurity or anxiety, and that will come up, and that feeling will really push you to want to shop. That's like a big reason why you end up kind of going out and buying lots of things you don't need because you don't want to feel that feeling, so you distract yourself with whatever you can. But to really learn to manage that, one, you just have to bear those feelings. Unfortunately, that is like the reality of life. It can be so hard, but learning to bear and manage and carry those feelings that are really not nice at all is a big part of it. But ways that you can kind of make that carrying more easy is through journaling, through writing about it, through thinking about your own processes, your own like shopping context, like how did you were raised, like what was in your environment when you were younger, what are the things that trigger you, why do you feel insecure right now? Like my insecurities come up to me a lot, and I have to not just go, well, I feel insecure right now, but really try and like find out why. Sometimes it's also just important that I sit there and go, well, I feel insecure and I'm not sure why, but that's okay, but I'm strong enough to carry this feeling and I will be okay with it. So also, like a therapist, like I know therapy has like this context of like, well, there must be something wrong with you. Honestly, I think every person in the world, including therapists themselves, should be having someone they can really talk to and really digest things. I think it's important that we have self-dialogue where we really have those conversations with ourselves. That's what journaling's for, or recording videos, or whatever it is. But also having another person there to just be a listener and sometimes reflect back to you what you present is so powerful and such a deep way to transform yourself and to just not feel alone in your own crap, really. Like, it's a very lonely experience being alive if you take away all the distractions, that is. A lot of people are so distracted that, yeah, you don't even feel how lonely you are, but honestly, it's not easy. Life isn't easy. Feeling the things isn't easy in any way, shape, or form. However, if you can learn the tools of being able to manage those feelings that are not easy at all to manage, but to do that work so it does become easier, you know, like, I think throughout my life there's been different themes or different issues that have come up at different points, and I have really worked on those things and they become less of a problem, and that's amazing. But something else usually always comes up. Like, I think that is the point of life, is that we are meant to be in this constant cycle of working on ourselves and to better ourselves, not just for us but also for everyone around us. Like, the way we carry ourselves in the world has weight. It has effect. Whether you see it or you don't, all your interactions with other human beings affects other people in some way. And so it's really our job to try and do the least harm and bring the most positivity we can to people's life. And that doesn't mean that you have to be like a happy, chappy, like peppy person everywhere you go. Like, hell no. Like, I ain't got no time for that kind of thing. But you know, if I can't bring lots of like joy and positivity, can I at least not cause harm? I guess is sort of like my mindset or how I try to work with it. So anyway, this was quite a long rambly video, but I hope it was helpful for those of you who've made it to the end. And yeah, you know, like, it's not going to be easy. This challenge isn't going to be easy, but there's going to be so many fruits that come out of the hard work you put in, and you put in the hard work now for results that will be continually rewarding in the future, is kind of the way I like to see it. And yeah, like, yeah, it's not going to be an easy year, but I'm also at the same time really excited. Like, I get excited to do work like this, and that's why I'm always doing these challenges. And yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's a part of life. Like, we all change as people as time unfolds, and that's like the beauty of it. Like, I really love that. I've been on YouTube, what, like 4 years or something, maybe 5 years, and where I was when I first started this channel to where I am now, like, I'm essentially the same person, but the amount of shit that's gone down in my life and I found a way to deal with it has been kind of insane, but also at the same time super rewarding, in the sense that I feel like I've developed it as a person, but I haven't fixed all my problems by any stretch of the imagination, and I still have so many insecurities and things that I have to deal with, but like, I'm so much more confident than I was 4 years ago. I just always get back to this place of just like, life's kind of insane and kind of incredible and kind of like torturous and painful, but also at the same time, like, look at all these amazing experiences you can have. And I don't know, I think for me and the type of personality I have, having some form of challenge is something that, one, is sometimes a distracting force, but two, if I'm doing some kind of challenge, it just always reminds me to get back to the work of like trying to improve myself. And when I can't do the inner work, when I just don't feel like I can dive into those deep dark places, at least I can try and do the work on the surface to try and keep this place here in order in some way, shape or form. And then that allows, when that's ordered, when that's got some kind of peace to it, then I feel like I have the energy to go a bit further and to go a bit deeper. So that was my sort of setup for how I do a no buy or low buy. I hope it was helpful in some way. For anyone who has gotten this far in the video, thank you so much. And yeah, I wish you the best with not just a challenge like this, but anything that you endeavor in your life. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!